There are about 6.8 million child support obligations in the United States, and about 10% of all divorce cases end with some kind of alimony or spousal support obligation. Now in 2015, about 10% of the American workforce were self-employed. That equates to about 15 million people. Proving income is important in determining the amount of child support or alimony that might be due in a particular divorce case. Hi, my name is Keith Taylor, and today I want to talk to you about what you can do if your spouse or ex-spouse is lying about their income and things that you can do to help prove it. First off, if your spouse is what we call a W-2 employee, a typical employee who's paid by a check on the books with a wage, that should be fairly simple and straightforward. In divorce cases and child support cases, and even cases to modify, change those support obligations, including alimony, you have the ability to engage in what's called discovery. You can make formal requests for documents. You can get tax returns, pay stubs, W-2 statements. You can also issue subpoenas to employers. And in those cases, there is a mandatory requirement that your spouse actually exchange many of these documents with you. Usually that's not where the problem arises when you have a W-2 employee. The tricky part is when you have a self-employed spouse or ex-spouse, or they're working under the table or off the books. So the question becomes, how do you prove their income if they're not getting a regular check from a legitimate employer? The first thing we suggest is you can talk to their coworkers or their supervisors. And if you're in the context of a case, you can even do that under oath by way of a subpoena. You know, people still do lie under oath, but they are supposed to tell the truth when they're placed under oath about their arrangements, if they're the supervisor, what they're paying, what the hours that are being worked by your spouse or ex-spouse. You might also talk to their customers. If they have their own business, they have customers, and you can find out what is the level of amount of money that is being paid to them by their customers. You might also look at their standard of living. For example, they may have fancy house, fancy car, new boats, grand vacations. The question becomes, if you're not making the money we think you are, where is the money coming from to pay for this extravagant lifestyle? Of course, you can get into the bank statements, and you have to get into the nitty-gritty of the bank statements to look for transfers, because maybe they're not being upfront and honest about all of their bank accounts. Credit card statements are another good place to look. In other words, so they put it on the credit card, the charge, the vacation, the expensive dinner on the credit card. Ultimately, it becomes a question of how are you paying that credit card bill if you're not making the money we think you're making, or if you're making the money you say you're making. So the credit card statements can also be quite enlightening. Also look at online accounts, things where either they're providing services or products online, such as VRBO, eBay, Etsy, Amazon. A lot of these online sales avenues will give you insight into income that your spouse is hiding. Don't forget about the new thing where money is being exchanged all the time on these apps. You have Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, PayPal, KenPay, and Chime. And by the time you watch this, there's probably going to be 5 or 6 or maybe even 10 more. All of those are subject to subpoena, and in the context of a case can be demanded of your spouse or ex-spouse. You might also look at requesting passwords so you can actually get in to make sure they've given you all of the right things. So even if there's not a solid pay record for your spouse or ex-spouse, if you dig in all the right places, you can establish what their true income is by considering these various avenues. If you have any other family law questions or other legal topics you'd like for me to discuss, please drop them below in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel.